The UFC is often remembered for explosive knockouts and sudden submissions, but some fights feel as if time itself slows down, stretching every second into a test of patience and pain. In these battles, chaos gives way to survival, and speed is replaced by endurance, forcing fighters and fans to live through every exchange. These are not moments of instant glory, but drawn-out wars where mental strength becomes as important as physical skill. Long fights expose the deepest layer of mixed martial arts, where conditioning, heart, and pain tolerance decide who can continue when the body begins to fail. As minutes pass, technique breaks down, breathing becomes heavier, and fighters are forced to rely on willpower rather than raw talent. Victory in these moments is not about domination, but about refusing to surrender when exhaustion threatens to take control. The longest fights in UFC history stand as brutal demonstrations of human limits, pushing athletes beyond what most people believe is possible inside a cage. These contests strip the sport down to its core, revealing courage, patience, and survival under extreme pressure. They are remembered, not because of highlight reel finishes, but because they show what happens when quitting feels easier than continuing. This countdown brings together two very different eras of the UFC, the structured modern age of 5-round championship fights and the dangerous early days with no time limits. In the modern era, fighters train to endure 25 intense minutes, managing energy and strategy with precision. In the early years, there were no rounds and no guarantees, only the demand to last as long as the body allowed. By combining these eras, the list tells the full story of endurance in MMA, from controlled championship marathons to raw, unforgiving survival tests. It shows how rules evolve to protect fighters while still demanding extraordinary toughness. Above all, it reminds us that the true spirit of the UFC is not only found in quick finishes, but in the courage to endure. 10. Frankie Edgar and Maynard delivered one of the most dramatic lightweight title fights in UFC history, lasting the full 25 minutes and feeling even longer because of constant momentum shifts. The fight immediately captured attention as Maynard used his size, power, and pressure to overwhelm Edgar early. From the opening exchanges, it was clear this would be a battle that tested survival more than speed. In the first round, Maynard nearly ended the fight, dropping Edgar multiple times and pushing him to the brink of a stoppage. Edgar's legs betrayed him, his balance vanished, and the crowd watched in disbelief as he struggled to remain standing. Many fighters would have folded under that pressure, but Edgar's refusal to quit changed the course of the fight. As the rounds progressed, Edgar began to recover and adapt, relying on movement, footwork, and precise timing. He used his cardio to stay active, forcing Maynard to work harder and gradually draining his explosive power. What began as domination slowly transformed into a contest of endurance, composure, and mental toughness. Each round shifted the narrative, with Edgar finding rhythm and Maynard fighting to maintain control. The pace remained intense, and both fighters absorbed damage while continuing to push forward. Neither man allowed fatigue to break their spirit, turning the fight into a true championship marathon. When the final horn sounded, both fighters were exhausted, battered, and emotionally drained from the 5-round war. The controversial draw reflected how evenly matched their heart and stamina truly were. This fight is remembered not just for its drama, but for showing how resilience can redefine destiny inside the octagon. 9. Leon Edwards vs. Kamaru Usman, 3 UFC 286-25-0. Leon Edwards and Kamaru Usman entered their trilogy carrying the weight of 2 unforgettable fights, and from the opening moments, it was clear this would be a battle of endurance and control. Rather than explosive exchanges, the contest unfolded at a grinding pace, where every clinch and every step along the fence demanded strength and focus. The fight felt heavy, slow, and suffocating, turning each minute into a mental challenge. Usman pushed forward relentlessly, using pressure, wrestling, and physical dominance to wear Edwards down. Takedown attempts, body locks, and prolonged clinch battles forced Edwards to defend constantly, leaving little room to breathe or reset. As the rounds passed, the effort required to simply survive each exchange began to drain both fighters. Edwards responded with composure and discipline, choosing defense, balance, and timing over reckless movement. He absorbed pressure while conserving energy, understanding that patience was his greatest weapon in such a demanding fight. Rather than chasing moments, he focused on lasting through them, proving his championship mindset. By the championship rounds, fatigue became visible on both fighters, with slower reactions and heavier breathing. Despite this exhaustion, neither man mentally collapsed, continuing to fight with focus and determination. The pressure never eased, making the final rounds feel longer than the clock suggested. When the fight reached the full 25 minutes, it stood as a lesson in elite conditioning and mental strength. This was not a battle of highlights, but of discipline. It showed how high-level MMA can feel endless when two champions refuse to break under pressure. 8. Max Holloway and Kattar delivered a 5-round fight that became a showcase of relentless striking rather than grappling or control. From the opening seconds, Holloway set a blistering pace, throwing combinations non-stop and forcing Kattar to defend at a level few fighters ever experienced. The fight moved quickly, yet the constant action made each minute feel longer than expected. Holloway's volume was historic as he mixed speed, angles, and creativity while never slowing down. He spoke to the commentary team mid-exchange, taunted his opponent, and still continued landing clean strikes. This display showed not just confidence, but an extraordinary level of conditioning and comfort under pressure. Kattar absorbed an incredible amount of punishment, yet continued to march forward with determination. His toughness became part of the story, as he refused to crumble despite the damage accumulating round after round. Kattar's heart allowed the fight to continue, turning endurance into a shared test rather than a one-sided display. As the rounds progressed, fatigue would normally reduce output, but Holloway did the opposite. His movement remained sharp, his hands stayed fast, and his accuracy never disappeared. This ability to increase pressure while tired separated him from most fighters in the sport. By the final horn, the full 25 minutes felt endless for both fighters and viewers alike. Holloway rewrote UF's striking records while maintaining dominance throughout. This fight proved that endurance is not just about surviving exhaustion, but about sustaining excellence when the body should be slowing down. 7. Jon Jones and Alexander Gustafsson delivered a title fight that redefined expectations for the light heavyweight division, lasting the full championship distance and feeling like a true war. From the opening round, Gustafsson showed no fear, matching Jones in range, speed, and confidence. This early resistance immediately pushed the champion into unfamiliar territory. Gustafsson's boxing and takedown defense shocked fans, as he repeatedly found success against a fighter many believed was untouchable. Jones, for the first time, was forced to adjust under pressure rather than dominate comfortably. Each exchange carried tension, making every minute feel heavy and exhausting. As the fight progressed, both men absorbed serious punishment, with visible damage accumulating on their faces and bodies. Wrestling exchanges, clinch battles, and striking combinations demanded constant energy, slowly draining their reserves. Fatigue became obvious, but neither fighter allowed it to dictate their effort. Jones relied on his championship experience, composure, and ability to stay calm in chaos. He mixed creativity with grit, using elbows, knees, and late takedowns to stay competitive. Gustafsson relied on belief, heart, and determination, refusing to back down even when hurt. By the end of 25 minutes, both fighters looked battered and exhausted, yet still dangerous. The final decision felt earned through pain, endurance, and resilience rather than dominance. This fight remains legendary because it showed what happens when greatness is truly challenged under the brightest lights. 6. Anderson Silva vs. Chael Sonnen 1 UFC 117-23-9. Anderson Silva and Chael Sonnen produced one of the most mentally exhausting fights in UFC history, lasting over 23 minutes and filled with constant pressure. From the opening round, Sonnen imposed his wrestling, controlling position, and pace. The fight felt heavy and draining, with every minute adding psychological weight. Sonnen's dominance was built on pressure, takedowns, and top control, forcing Silva to defend rather than attack. Round after round, Silva was pushed to the canvas, absorbing strikes and conserving energy. The longer the fight continued, the more it appeared that control and discipline were winning over creativity. Silva, however, remained calm under pressure, refusing to panic despite losing rounds. He focused on survival, breathing, and patience, understanding that exhaustion could create opportunity. This mental strength allowed him to endure long stretches of disadvantage without breaking emotionally. As time passed, fatigue began to affect Sonnen, even as he maintained control. Holding dominance for over 20 minutes demanded enormous energy, and small mistakes became more likely. The tension grew with every second as fans sensed that one error could change everything. With less than 2 minutes remaining, Silva capitalized on a single opening, locking in a triangle submission. In an instant, the entire narrative shifted. This fight proved that endurance, patience, and belief can rewrite history, even after long periods of control and exhaustion. 5. Royce, Gracie, and Severn fought during the brutal no-time-limit era, creating a slow and exhausting contest defined by strength versus technique. Severn used his massive size and wrestling control to dominate position, pressing his weight down and forcing Gracie to carry the burden. Without rounds or breaks, every second felt heavier as energy slowly drained. Severn controlled long stretches of the fight from the top, relying on pressure rather than speed. His strategy was simple: exhaust Gracie, limit movement, and use strength to deny space. The lack of time limits meant there was no urgency, only the need to survive and outlast. Gracie remained calm under pressure, refusing to panic despite being pinned underneath a much larger opponent. He focused on breathing, conserving energy, and minimizing damage while waiting patiently for a mistake. This composure allowed him to stay mentally strong, even as minutes passed with little visible progress. As the fight dragged on, the physical toll became clear on both fighters. Severn's constant pressure required immense energy, while Gracie's survival demanded focus and discipline. Fatigue slowly created small openings, turning patience into a weapon rather than a weakness. After nearly 17 exhausting minutes, Gracie finally found his moment. He locked in a triangle choke, using technique and timing to overcome raw power. The submission ended a draining battle and proved that endurance, patience, and skill could defeat size, strength, and control in the earliest days of the UFC. 4. Mark Coleman vs. Don Frye UFC 10-15-0. Mark Coleman and Don Frye collided in a brutal early-era contest that lasted 15 exhausting minutes and demanded constant physical effort. Coleman relied heavily on his wrestling, using takedowns and top control to wear Frye down. Every exchange required strength, turning the fight into a grinding test of endurance rather than speed. Don Frye absorbed relentless pressure, yet continued to fight back with toughness and determination. There were no modern breaks, limited referee interventions, and fewer safety pauses, forcing both men to work without relief. As minutes passed, fatigue built rapidly, and even simple movements became difficult. The lack of advanced rules meant fighters had to manage their own survival, conserving energy while enduring punishment. Breathing grew heavier, grips weakened, and posture broke down as exhaustion set in. Each moment felt longer, because there was no guaranteed endpoint, only the demand to continue. Coleman maintained control through raw strength and wrestling fundamentals, while Frye relied on grit and resistance. Neither fighter could afford to relax, as a single mistake could end the fight instantly. This constant pressure made the 15 minutes feel far longer than the clock suggested. By the final moments, both fighters were visibly exhausted, showing how early MMA rewarded durability more than finesse. This fight illustrated a time when survival instincts mattered more than highlight techniques. It remains a reminder that endurance, not speed, often decided victory in the sport's earliest and harshest era. 3. Ken Shamrock vs. Royce, Gracie UFC 536-0. The UFC has witnessed some of its most memorable battles, not through explosive knockouts or lightning-fast submissions, but through sheer duration, where every second becomes a measure of willpower, conditioning, and mental toughness, and these extended fights from modern 5-round title wars to the no-time limit clashes of early MMA reveal the true limits of human endurance, forcing athletes to balance strategy, energy conservation, and relentless punishment while maintaining focus and leaving audiences with unforgettable examples of the slow-burning drama that defines the sport beyond spectacular finishes. Frankie, Edgar, and Maynard's 25-minute lightweight title clash epitomized endurance at the highest level, as Edgar survived repeated knockdowns, adjusted his strategy round by round, and showcased heart and conditioning, with the draw emphasizing how stamina and mental resilience can shape championship outcomes, while Leon Edwards and Kamaru Usman's trilogy fight mirrored this test of elite conditioning, stretching another 25 minutes of wrestling, clinch control, and subtle tactical maneuvering, where neither fighter broke mentally despite visible fatigue, highlighting how patience and cardio govern modern championship contests. In the striking and strategic arenas, Max Holloway versus Kattar demonstrated relentless offensive output, sustained over 25 minutes, requiring discipline under exhaustion, while Jon Jones versus Alexander Gustafsson redefined light, heavyweight warfare with sustained punishment and strategic exchanges, leaving both visibly drained yet mentally unyielding. Silva versus Chael Sonnen added psychological strain to physical pressure in over 23 minutes of constant attack, and patience, and early-era battles like Royce Gracie versus Severn, Mark Coleman versus Don Fry, and Shamrock versus Gracie stretched 15 to 36 minutes, proving that stamina, survival instincts, and technical skill define the longest, most brutal, and ultimately most legendary fights in UFC history. 2. Severn vs Oleg Taktarov, UFC 633-0. Severn and Oleg Taktarov faced off in one of the longest and most grueling contests in UFC history, lasting 33 minutes and testing every element of physical and mental endurance. And this fight was not defined by flashy strikes or quick finishes, but by slow, deliberate grappling exchanges where every position demanded strength, focus, and careful calculation. As the minutes stretched on, both fighters experienced the crushing weight of fatigue, with every transition, hold, and adjustment sapping energy and forcing them to dig deep into their reserves, and the struggle to maintain control became increasingly exhausting as their bodies weakened under constant pressure, highlighting the brutal reality of prolonged combat in the octagon. Throughout the battle, Severn and Taktarov demonstrated patience, discipline, and technical mastery, each refusing to surrender while navigating a complex chess match of submissions, escapes, and positional dominance, and the intensity of the fight grew not from explosive action, but from the slow, relentless toll exacted on their stamina and mental focus, showing how long-duration contests demand a unique combination of resilience, strategy, and experience. In the end, Taktarov secured a submission, ending the exhausting marathon and leaving a lasting impression of how the octagon can test every fiber of an athlete's endurance, proving that the longest UFC fights are not only physical wars, but profound demonstrations of human perseverance, mental toughness, and the relentless pursuit of victory against the most draining odds imaginable. 1. Shamrock vs Severn, UFC 936-0. Shamrock and Severn engaged in the longest fight in UFC history, lasting an astonishing 36 minutes, a battle set in the early days of mixed martial arts where there were no rounds, no time limits, and none of the modern safety measures that protect fighters today, and the match became as much a test of mental fortitude as physical endurance, with every moment demanding calculated patience, energy conservation, and tactical awareness to survive the grueling contest. Both athletes relied heavily on wrestling control, maneuvering for positional advantage while carefully managing fatigue, and every movement, from takedown attempts to escapes, became exponentially more taxing as muscles burned, respiration slowed, and the relentless pressure of a fight without pause weighed on both men, demonstrating how early-era contests were brutal examinations of human capacity under extreme stress. Throughout the 36 minutes, Shamrock and Severn displayed extraordinary resilience, refusing to yield while attempting to exploit even the smallest openings, and the slow, methodical pace forced them to continuously adapt strategy while balancing risk and energy expenditure, turning each second into a silent battle of wills. Ultimately, the fight concluded when Shamrock could not continue due to injury, marking an epic and historic moment in UFC history, a demonstration of endurance, mental toughness, and survival instincts, and a vivid reminder of the harsh realities of early mixed martial arts, where victory was often defined not by speed or flashy technique, but by the ability to withstand pain, fatigue, and unrelenting pressure over extraordinary periods, leaving a legacy that still echoes in the sport today. The longest fights in UFC history may not always dazzle with highlight reel knockouts or spectacular submissions, but they reveal the truest measure of a fighter's resilience, mental toughness, and physical conditioning, and these contests often transform from battles of skill into wars of survival, where every decision, movement, and breath carries immense weight, testing the limits of human endurance and the depth of a competitor's heart under relentless pressure. From the early no-time limit eras, where fighters like Ken Shamrock, Dan Severn, and Oleg Taktarov battled for over 30 minutes without pause, to modern 5-round championship wars such as Frankie Edgar versus Maynard or Max Holloway versus Kattar, these epic contests demand patience, strategy, and the ability to absorb punishment while continuing to push forward, and they expose both the physical and psychological strain that comes from sustained combat. In these grueling fights, every second feels magnified, as exhaustion sets in and muscles tighten, breathing labors, and even simple movements require extraordinary effort, and the longer the battle continues, the more the mental game defines success, forcing fighters to balance risk, conserve energy, and maintain focus while seeking openings that may never arrive. Ultimately, these long bouts leave an indelible mark because they are endured rather than quickly won, and they demonstrate that true greatness in MMA is often forged not in moments of brilliance, but in the quiet, painful accumulation of stamina, courage, and sheer will, minute by minute, breath by breath, until only heart remains, and the fighters who survive these extreme tests achieve a legacy that transcends records, creating stories of perseverance that resonate through the history of the sport.